good morning and welcome to Otepaa, where the snow is continuing to fall, which I guess for the tourist information and all those concerned with tourism in these parts is a good thing, but certainly made heavy going of the racing yesterday. An individual sprint in the classic style yesterday. We've moved on to the freestyle and it's a team event today. So this weekend all about the sprinters, giving those endurance athletes who've 8 days now completed the, or exactly a week since they completed the Tour de Ski, so they get an extended rest before their World Cup action starts again. Well, let's have a look at the programmes for today before we get underway. The cross-country skiing, obviously, from Otepaa is next on a card, and then alpine skiing from Wengen. Nick and John out there looking forward to a good race in the men's downhill, perhaps the most spectacular downhill of the season. And then Nordic combined with Simon Golding coming up at 1:30 UK time, and that, of course, coming from Seefeld in Austria. Now, Eurosport 1 alpine skiing, Matt Chilton on the women's downhill from Cortina. Weather problems yesterday, the weather much improved today, thank goodness. Biathlon, we've got the men and women's mass starts coming up, the women going first, and this is their third mass start of the season. Then we go back to Poland, ski jumping with David Goldstrom. That should be another fantastic event. And they're going off the 134-metre jump, so we should see some spectacular action from Zakopane later on today. Well, this is the scene. The crowd not quite as big as it was yesterday. Fantastic support. I was really impressed. The weather was absolutely atrocious, but the support superb. Hopefully, once this race gets underway, the numbers will swell. But maybe it says something about the team sprint. Maybe it just needs revamping a little. Well, yesterday was a first-time win for Thomas Northug, of course, the brother of Petter Northug. And I can't find any other cross-country siblings who have both won the World Cup in the same discipline, in a classic sprint. But Petter Northug, very bold move. He went early on. He's there wearing number 7. And a couple of his teammates had decided to double pole the final. Quite why they'd done that when we'd already seen in the early rounds that double poling was pretty much impossible. These two climbs very, very steep. And soon a 5-metre lead was extended to 50. And Northug in absolutely no trouble whatsoever. Round the final corner. And he got information from the coaches going down that final straight. He knew he had it in the bag. So his first World Cup win, and he joins his brother as a World Cup winner. So at last, coming out of the shadow of Petter Northug, Thomas Northug on very good form. Norway getting 1, 2, 3. Or in 1, 2, 4, 5 and 6. In the women's, it was a similar story. Norway winning again. Osberg on very good form. She leads the Sprint World Cup standings this year. An intelligent day's racing for Osberg. She went very quick in the first rounds, but that was just relative to the athletes in her heat. In the semi-finals, she tucked in. She's wearing number 1, always tucking in until she went round that top end of the course. And this is where it was so vital to be in the top 3 positions. You couldn't afford to be off the pace. Celine Brunli also going well for the Norwegians, number 7. Stina Nielsen, the youngster, the under-23 World Cup leader, showing what class she's got and coming in second place. Couldn't quite catch Osberg down that finishing straight. Powerful double poling action from Osberg, who, of course, took the gold in the team event out in Sochi at the Olympics last year. And so she notches up yet another World Cup win to extend her lead in the sprint standings. So that was the action from yesterday. Just to recap, Northug, Hattestad, Kettelai were the top 3 in the men's. Kettelai, of course, from Finland, breaking up that Norwegian domination. Goldberg, Kroch, Fosley, all from Norway, 4, 5 and 6. In the women's, Osberg, Nielsen and Brunli. Nielsen from Sweden, the other 2 from Norway. And then Fala, Shapovalova and Pajala making up the top 6. Well, there's Justina Kowalczyk. What can she do today? A disappointing 16th place yesterday. Welcome back to Otepaa. This is the scene for the team event today, the team sprint event. So many of the same players as yesterday, although 1 or 2 of the classic specialists obviously sitting out. This is a freestyle race. And the big nations tend to have classic sprint specialists and freestyle sprint specialists. Let's just give you some idea of the teams that we're looking at. They've been through the semi-final stages. The first of the semi-finals very much quicker in the women's. 7 out of 9 going through, and only 3 teams going through from the B semi-final. So we've got Norway 1, Finland, Sweden 1 and 2, Finland 2 as well, Russia and Slovenia all going through from that first as we have a look at the course profile. 1.2 kilometres, 6 times round, so each of the 2 athletes goes round 3 times. It's quite a drawn-out affair, but exactly the same course as we saw the women race on yesterday with just that one big climb. The men have a double climb, so up to 750 metres, and then what doesn't look too steep on that profile, but that second part of that second hill, an absolute killer. That's what caught out the men who tried to double pole the whole of yesterday's race. Freestyle, it's a different game altogether. No one's got any stick wax on, I hope. Maybe some clister on the tracks after yesterday's event. So let's look at the lineup for the sprint. There are Norway, World Cup leaders, and it's not often you get a team with both the Olympic gold medalist and the Olympic silver medalist. Can anyone beat Faller and Usberg? They are on very, very good form, good friends, and it's going to be interesting to see what they can do. Maiken Kaspersen Faller, of course, the Olympic champion from Sochi. She's also the Norwegian champion as well, which is almost as difficult a title to win. There's Kowalczyk. She loves racing here. Many people questioning why she'd made the journey, having raced so hard in the Tour de Ski and not finding form. But I guess she always comes here. She got her first ever win here. She's always been successful, except for yesterday. So maybe she can turn that round. Germany with Kolb and Hermann. That's quite a powerful partnership. Kiloinen is racing for Finland alongside Palmakoski. And then the United States, Ida Sargent, wearing 17-1, and she'll be handing over to Rosie Brennan from the APU Nordic Ski Centre. And the Americans always outperform expectations, let's put it that way. I think they're really good fighters in these sprint events. There's a familiar face, Aina Kaiso Saarinen. She's been around for ages, still going. We saw her fighting in the Tour de Ski. Didn't really seem to be on her best form, but certainly got better as the tour went on. So we'll see if Saarinen can spring a surprise. Lampitz and Razinger racing in Slovenia too. Lampitz had a good race actually yesterday in the classic style, finished in the semi-finals, finished down in the 11th place, but was the best of the Slovenians. And Katja Viznar finishing in 13th. So away go the first runners. And 10 teams involved in the final. They've already been through the semi-final stages. And so 3 times round the 1.2 for each athlete. So a total distance of 7.2 kilometres. And in these soft conditions, well, certainly they should be under 20 minutes. And as is usually the case, the teams all sticking together in the early stages. Once they've been around a few times, the straight bits will get quicker because the snow's been pressed down. The steep hills and the corners will be a little bit harder to negotiate. So maybe those two things will even themselves out. We've got our first broken pole, and that's Hannah Kolb of Germany, comes from Buchenberg, and now finds herself at the back. No panic though, she only lost a couple of metres, and really no need to push too hard at this stage. Just settle in behind, keep an eye on those in front. Faller of Norway, third in the Sprint World Cup standings. Just behind her, the familiar figure of Justina Kowalczyk. Kowalczyk racing with Jaskovic, and if those two are both on their best form, they could give the Norwegians a run for their money. Now, Kowalczyk looks a little more dynamic today. She looked sluggish and slow yesterday. 16th place in a World Cup in Otepaa. Well, that's extraordinary for someone of her abilities, but it's not been a brilliant season for Justina Kowalczyk. Don't forget, she's won the Tour de Ski 4 times, but was blown away by the Norwegians this year, who got first, second and third, and just for good measure got 4th place as well, with a fantastic finish from Ragnhild Haga, the youngster who got her first podium in a World Cup event early on in the tour. But she's certainly a name to watch out for. I thought her technique was unbelievably good, particularly at the top of the Alpe Chemise, where most people were falling apart. So down towards the stadium and the completion of the first leg. No surprise to see the Norwegians up there. The Swedes, I think, just saying you're not going to have it all your own way. Sweden 1 and 2 both going through. Ingmar's daughter for Sweden 1. They've got bib number 4, and Sweden 2 wearing bib number 3 with Pajala. Both their teams right up there with the leaders. And Norway getting away. Should still be able to hold on to first place. The Americans doing well. Ida Sargent just deciding to follow the Norwegians. That wasn't so clever from Falla. You saw a couple of the athletes just keeping the skis together, arms in the air, sticks by the side, and that's just so they don't obstruct those athletes coming through. It is an awkward time. We will see some collisions, and in the men's race, which runs at about 14-15% faster than the women's race, the handovers are pretty tricky. And tactics certainly involved. This is a nasty looking corner, really wet and slushy on that left-hander. I don't think Østberg will have any qualms about leading the way. I thought she raced a brilliantly intelligent sprint event yesterday. She led strongly in the first round of the knockout phases, and then when it started snowing and the track slowed, she knew the easiest place to be was right at the back, where the tracks had been pressed down. They were a bit glazed, they were a bit faster, and she only made a move when absolutely necessary. So just showing that she's not just a talent, she's also got a very good racing brain on her as well. And it's Østberg who leaves. Justina Kowalczyk, time to recover. Just watching the screen, because that's the only way they know that how their partners are getting on. And while the teammates are watching the race, the technicians hard at work with the skis just to get them back into good condition. They may give them a quick clean, they'll certainly brush them down, maybe a sprinkle of wax just to increase the speed for the later stages. But they've only got 3 minutes or so to achieve that. So we've got Sweden 1 just ahead of Sweden 2, both of whom are trailing the Norwegians. Germany in 4, USA in 5. I think that looks like Jaskowitz in 6 for Poland, is it? We'll just check on that. Well, there's USA. Just wanting to see who that is behind the Americans. Kowalczyk, of course, wearing black this year. I have a feeling Jaskowitz might be in red, but we'll see soon enough. Down they come towards the stadium again, and a slightly bigger gap between the leading 5 or 6 teams, and that could be useful. Østberg looking for Falla. Falla right in the middle, slightly surprised she hasn't pushed herself over to one side, but she knows exactly what she's doing, and away goes Norway for the 3rd lap. 2 completed. Norway first in the first exchange, first in the second exchange. Poland doing well. And that's Kowalczyk on the left-hand side of your screen, 14. Just still looking a little bit awkward with the freestyle technique. Just the timing, there's something that's not quite right, but she's so powerful, has such a good engine, that over the years she's been one of the dominant forces, and what rivalry she's had, of course, with Marit Bjørgen all the way through, and then with Petra Majdic before she retired, and it's gone on and on and on. I just hope we see Kowalczyk back to her best. It would be nice to see her back to her best at the World Championships and giving the Norwegians a run for her money. Falla looking very good, leading the way for Norway. Poland in second place with Kowalczyk, and Sweden 1 with bib number 4 tucked in behind. Slightly slower Sweden 1 were than Sweden 2 in qualifying, but it doesn't matter. They both made it through, and as we often say, the best you can do is to get through to the final, skiing as slowly as possible. Your position on the start line really in an event like this makes no difference whatsoever. Up towards the summit of the only climb on the loop. This is the first leg runner's second ascent, so they've got one more to go after this, and it's often the penultimate lap, which is these skiers' last lap, where the breaks are made. But I don't think Fala wants to hang around. She's starting to string them out. The Slovenian's starting to struggle at the back. Kowalczyk having no problem staying with Fala at the moment. The two Swedish teams with Pajala and Ingmar's daughter go round in third and fourth. And then the Finns behind them. The Americans with Ida Sargent down in sixth place. So they're still only some 15 metres off the lead. So a good run so far from Ida Sargent in USA. And Brennan did very well on that second leg. Brennan actually looking very comfortable on her leg, so she could feature come the end of the day. Now, do you put your best athlete first so they can make a break on the penultimate lap, or do you put your fastest athlete second? Most of them, well, most teams going for the first option. I think Kowalczyk giving Jaskovic the honour of taking the anchor leg here. So 3 laps completed, and still only a couple of seconds separating the top 4 teams. Good move by the Americans to get up into fourth, but it's Poland who hand over first. Norway 1 are still there in second place, and 3 seconds back to Sweden, to Finland 2, and really only Germany with work to do. Russia with Natalia Matvieva, haven't seen too much of them. Anastasia Dotsenko is racing for Russia's first team as well. Russia too not making it through. That was Shakaleva and Romanova. So Østberg still happy to lead. In these soft conditions, it's not a bad idea. Those in your slipstream have a slight advantage, but I just wonder whether Østberg has a little psychological hold over the rest of these athletes, because the Swedes have certainly made no effort whatsoever to go through. Well, that's Jaskovic for Poland on the right-hand side. There she is. So in completely different colours from Kowalczyk as suspected. Well, these are difficult times, and this is when it really counts. Saarinen done well so far, the veteran for the Finnish team. They're wearing bib number 5. She's in Finland's second team, incidentally. Kaloinen and Parmakoski, always quite fun when the second team gets an advantage over the lead team. And at the moment, it's Norway 1 with Sweden 1 just behind them. Poland's only team in third place at the moment. Germany moving up. Good skiing from the Germans. That's Denise Herrmann, who's going well. Comes from Oberwiesenthal. All the German resorts suffering until this weekend, the biggest snowfall of the year. And hopefully, those who've got ski trips planned for the end of January, beginning of February, are going to get some decent conditions. Certainly seems that way. Another weekend of snow like we've had this weekend, and I think that will set them up for the rest of the season. So down towards the stadium, 3 exchanges already. This is the 4th lap completed, and just 2.4 kilometres remaining in this race. 1.2 for each of the runners. And as I suggested earlier, the penultimate lap is often where the teams try and make a break. I think Østberg's been winding it up slowly, and so having had a team of 7 teams go through pretty much together within 3 seconds last time round, I think the gaps are going to be a little bit bigger. Germany only 1.7 behind in 4th place, and then a 4-second gap back to Finland 1 and 2. The United States losing ground on that last loop. Sweden 2 have lost a lot of ground, 7.4 behind. And the Russians' first team in all sorts of trouble. Natalia Matveeva unable to close the gap. And now it's down to Anastasia Dotsenko, who you can see wearing 6 at the back of that second group. So, up the front, the 4 teams. Norway 1, as I'm sure you know, in the red bib as the World Cup leaders. Just behind them are Sweden 1. And then Poland with Justyna Kowalczyk, who hasn't made a mistake so far today. And Germany with Hanna Kolb on her last lap. Now, will Fala try and make a break? She comes from Lillehammer. Won the Norwegian National Championships in the sprint event. That was January 14, so she's going to have to defend that pretty soon. That's a big title to have. Third in the World Cup standings, Kalle. She's 24 years old, just like her teammate Østberg, both in their prime in terms of sprinting, but still unable to get away. Now Kowalczyk starts to raise the game. Sweden look as though they're struggling just a little bit with Ida Ingmarsdottir, and Germany falling off the pace as well with Hannah Kolb. And it looks as though the three medalists may well be decided on this penultimate climb. Kowalczyk looking good, and for the first time Norway being forced into second place on this climb. Falla needs to stay with it if Østberg's going to have a chance. Could be a good day for Polish skiing. Jaskowicz will be watching this on the big screen, knowing that it's now down to her. Another little burst comes in from Maiken Kaspersen Falla. Excellent work from the Norwegian, and Sweden haven't given up yet. Ingmarsdottir still there, and a margin of some 15 seconds between third and fourth. This has been a very damaging run for 7 of the 10 teams. Well, that's the top of the climb. It's downhill now to the stadium. And so, really, it's all about staying on your feet, getting a good line into that final corner. Not always best to lead into this hill. I think we'll see Sweden with Ingmarsdottir gain on those two teams up front as they come down the hill. She should be able to take advantage of the slipstream. And if she corners well, she might get slung into that home straight and be able to hand over to Stine Nielsen. Level with Norway, but still Falla is pushing hard. This has been a very good leg from her. Kowalczyk's given Poland every possible chance. It's now down to Jaskowicz to see if she can outski the Norwegians, who've been totally dominant in the women's skiing right the way throughout the season. So, Norway, Poland, Sweden. It's going to be between those teams. Finland 5.3 behind. That's an awful lot of work for the Finns to do with Sara Sawyer. United States 8.4, Germany 1, who are right up there in the early stages of that penultimate leg, with Hannah Kolb have dropped down, and Denise Herman, I think, with too big a task, and judging by her body language, she's not even going to chase down the leaders. Now, Finland have got to hope that this is tactical. Finland 1 and Finland 2 just in the background there. They're in 4th and 5th, and if Østberg decides to race this tactically, then they've got a chance. But Østberg loves leading when she feels the conditions are right, and she certainly has done today. She's led every leg. Now this is her chance to break away. Jaskowicz in red just behind her, and then Sweden with Stine Nielsen, who's had such a good season, the leader of the under-23 World Cup. Stine Nielsen saw her in most of the Tour de Ski. She didn't race the last couple of legs of the Tour de Ski. I think that was a wise decision from Nielsen. Most of the Swedes didn't turn up. Charlotte Kalla, of course, not taking part in the Tour at all. Her priority this year is to come away from Falun and the World Championships with a bag full of gold, or at least one gold. Maybe the relay. What a race that's going to be. Remember, Sweden are the 4x5 women's Olympic relay champions. That hurt the Norwegians badly, and many of the Norwegian teams saying that is the one that they want to win. Well, still, Østberg failing to shake off the opposition, and Nielsen looking very good in second place. Much slower tempo. She's a tall woman, Nielsen, and she's raced this one to perfection. How much has Østberg got left to give? So the leading three go round within 1.1 seconds of each other at the top of the course, and now it's all about this descent. Tactics, technique, so important at this stage. Nielsen, for me, is in the absolutely perfect spot, and if she just drops back a couple of metres, lets the speed build as they come down to the final corner. They've got that little rise. Nielsen breaks to the right early. She had to, because she was almost on the back of the skis of Østberg. Over the little rise, and Nielsen seems to have the faster skis at the moment. Jaskowicz starting to make a move, and Østberg, who won the sprint yesterday, is in a little bit of bother. 75 metres to go, and it's still Stine Nielsen leading, but Østberg driving hard on the far side, unable to close the gap, and Nielsen pulls away. An emphatic victory for the Swedes. That really is a landmark for them, and surely their confidence is going to go sky high with the World Championships approaching. 16:11. Remember, they've 6 times round that 1.2 kilometre loop. Østberg tried everything. Perhaps she should have stuck in behind Nielsen. There was no real danger from behind. Look at the margin, 16.5 seconds. But Nielsen, tactically, very, very smart today. She just glued herself to the back of Ingvild Osberg and took advantage in the last 75 metres. Well, there is a lesson for the men's race. You do not want to be coming down that hill in first place. Osberg did well, actually, to hold off Jaskevite, but my goodness, Stina Nielsen is a good find for the Swedish team. This is Slovenia with Nika Razinger. We haven't seen a lot of them. They dropped off the pace early on, 59.5 behind at the end of the day. So, Sweden 1, Norway 2, and Poland in third position. Great racing. Well done to Jaskevite. She fought hard on that last leg. Didn't quite have enough in the tank to challenge Osberg. Certainly didn't have enough to challenge Nielsen, who was on flying form. There she is. A victory for Sweden. Ingmar's daughter and Nielsen. So there you have confirmation of the results. 16:11 the time, only 0.9 of a second separating the top three. Good sprint finish there in dirty conditions, soft, slushy. It's very difficult, but Nielsen showed great balance and yeah, brought a smile to the face of those Swedish fans. She comes from Mora, incidentally, which is that's the finish of the Vasaloppet, and so there'll be plenty of fans there cheering that race on, and no doubt delighted that Nielsen has taken the win and taken the scalp of their biggest rivals. Well, that's a slow-mo of stages of the race. This, of course, was the finish. Now, Osberg's still in front at this stage. Well, we've missed the crucial stage just before that little rise that leads into the that flat finish. Stina Nielsen came out of the slipstream,
Stina and
overtook
Ida,
Osberg. Well, here are the two winners.
Finish at the
Ida,
end there.
Ingmar's daughter. Don't underestimate
Ida,
what she did today.
How the course was. Justina was really pushing out there.
Yeah, on the last lap, Justina was pushing really hard uphills, and she and Maiken was doing really hard pushing, and I was really stiff in my legs, but I tried to keep as close as I could, and I know that the Swedish Waxer today had done a really good job, and I had better skis downhill, and I tried to keep a good corner and push everything downhill and try to give Stina as good as possible position for the last lap.
And Stina, we saw your skis coming down the last hill, so you knew they were quite good as well. Was it a nice tactic not to have to take the lead and just use the draft coming down for a fast finish?
Yeah, I was really happy with Ida's performance. So I could. I went out on the same time as Norway. And I knew that Ingvild is very strong. So I just wanted to be behind her before the last downhill and surf around her.
Well, congratulations on a very nice victory.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So that's the winning team, and yeah, very sensible tactics there from Stina Nielsen. Little sidestep, and she was past Osberg without any trouble at all, and the technicians once again getting praise, as they should do. So the champions have been wounded, and Norway having settled for second place. That's very, very rare. I'm not sure it's happened at any stage this season, because Johaug and Bjørgen between them have swept up all the World Cup victories, and when those two haven't won, Osberg has stepped in and won the sprints as well. So that's good news in terms of the World Championships and the rest of the season. I think it's the sort of victory that Sweden needed to give them a boost for those the major champs in Falun, of course. And what a great race by the Poles to claim third place. And nice to see Justyna Kowalczyk. She looked on much better form than we've seen from her recently. And maybe she's made just the right decision coming here. A little bit of short, sharp racing, just putting a bit of spark back into her technique. And Kowalczyk working well alongside Sylvia Jaskevite. Now it is the turn of the men. Semi-finals completed. We're through to the final. Again, 6 laps, but instead of a 1.2, it's a 1.5 kilometre course. And the crucial distance, apart from those extra 300 metres, is that the men have 2 climbs to complete. And the second one is very, very steep indeed. And that could be where all the breaks are made. Russia 1 through without too much trouble. Pechikov and Ustiakov. Russia 2 also making it with Parfenov and Morilov. On paper, 2 very strong teams. Well, the crowd numbers swelling for the start of the men's final. Still not quite as many here as we saw yesterday in the individual sprint. That was a great event. The Estonians, incidentally, really like classic skiing. They're one of the nations that have pretty much stuck with it. All the kids get taught how to classic ski before they learn the freestyle. And over the years with their top athletes, that's where they've had their success. Of course, the Schmigen sisters both doing so well. And we were having a discussion about how many siblings have done well. We could think of a lot of siblings who've been on the World Cup tours, both in biathlon and cross country, but we couldn't find a pair, other than the Nortugs, who have both won World Cups. The Aucklands, of course, Anders Auckland, 6 World Cup wins, I think he had. Jürgen, his brother, got on the podium, but never won. The Schmigens, Christina, 16 World Cup wins, plus a number of major titles, but Katrin, her sister, never won, never got on the podium. The Fourcade brothers in biathlon, of course, Martin Fourcade has won a bucket full of World Cups, but Simon has been on the podium 7-8 times, never taken the win. They could be the next 2 to do it. The Simarenkos, Vita and Vaya, again, both been on the podium, but only one of them has won, and the list goes on and on. The Eckhoffs, the Bjorndalens, of course, the Shellbrides before Livgreda married Raphael Poiret. And you come back to triathlon, and then you have the Brownlees, both who have won at the highest level. So let's focus now on the teams that are going to be competing for the men's title. Italy, always dangerous. Freddie Pellegrino, what a great athlete he is. He'll be exciting to watch today. Pellegrino taking the anchor leg for Italy. Team number 1. Norway, Hadestad and Goldberg. They look strong on paper, but so did Norway's number 1 team in the women's race, and they had to settle for second. 21, Estonia with Ryder Rankol. He's what a great semi-final they had. Peter Kummel coming through as well. So it's nice that the locals have a team competing. You can just see them on the left of the screen. Team number 21, team 9. That is Poland with Maciej Krzeczmark getting the first leg for them. 2 Norwegian teams. Hadestad and Goldberg in Norway 2, Glursen and Krok in Norway 1, and well, Norway 2 got the advantage in the semis with the quicker time. We'll see if it's the same again in the final. 1.5 kilometres, 6 times round, 3 laps for each of the skiers. And the first one, usually very steady indeed. They all know exactly what they've got to do. Alexei Pechikov is trail breaking at the moment. The man who's got 3 individual wins. They've all come in the freestyle. We didn't see Pechikov in the race yesterday. He's lying second in the World Cup rankings. That might be his main target for this year, to take the sprint title. It's not going to be easy, but he's a strong, strong man. He's behind Krok is the World Cup leader, and Krok is some 59 points, I think, the difference between first and second in the sprint standings at the moment. Krok's advantage is that he's pretty sharp in both classic and freestyle, whereas Pechikov, as I said, is certainly better in the freestyle technique. He still leads. Number 17 is Roman Schad of Switzerland. He looks a little like, and skis very like, Dario Cologna. And of course Gianluca Cologna, who is Gianluca racing today. He, of course, is Schad's partner. Dario resting up and no doubt focusing on the major championships for the rest of the season. Well, I'd be interested to know what you thought of the Tour de Ski this year, and the fact that Marit Bjørgen getting her first win. And of course in the men's race, very, very exciting. I think they've just about got the bonus points. I know a few of you are very anti-bonus points in the Tour de Ski because it seems to give the leaders such a massive advantage. But when you look at the men's standings prior to the final day's racing, it was very, very well balanced this time round. And of course Sundby coming through to take the win in the men's race. No real surprise to see Sundby doing so well on the last day, but it was a good race. But the other question is the Alpchemise, that brutal climb up that downhill slope, is that the ideal final leg for the Tour de Ski? Because I can only think of one overtaking manoeuvre, or two overtaking manoeuvres. Sundby, of course, who went ahead of Petter Northug, but he did that on the flat at the beginning of the stage. And then, of course, in the women's race, Ragnhild Haga coming back to overtake Stephen of USA in the final stages to give the Norwegian winning 1, 2, 3 and 4. Otherwise, there wasn't a lot of action. It's a great atmosphere, no doubt about that, but is it the ideal final leg for a Tour race? And if you can come up with any other options, let us know. Should they get to the top and then turn around and come back down again? That might be interesting. So round they come, first leg completed, and over 3 minutes on the clock, as you would expect for 1.5 kilometres, but it will get quicker. We'll try and make a note of the split times as we go round. Let's give this one 3:21 for the first lap. Hadderstad handing over to Goldberg. Nuclear of Italy hands over to Federico Pellegrino, who's been on very good form this season. Pellegrino 4th in the sprint standing, so he's a real class act. And if he's anywhere near the front at the end, he could spring a surprise today. Number 9, that's Poland with Starega now, who's taken over from Kresmar. I think Norway 1 will be happy with that. Anders Glorsen took the first leg for Norway 1, handed over to Finn Hagen Krok, man from Alta in Norway. Well, it's still fairly pedestrian, isn't it, as they make their way up the first climb. Now, this is certainly an event that could do with just some tweaking. 1.5 kilometres, it's a long way. I wonder what an 800-metre course would do to the type of racing. I think it would be fairly flat out. And if you're going to race 800 metres, the teams would obviously be closer together at the exchanges. I think you'd need a little bit more room for the exchange to make it fair. Maybe give each team a lane as they come through the stadium, so they're not going to obstruct anyone. And then you have a 50-metre lead into the exchange and a 50-metre lead out. But if you're going to have 10 teams, that's going to be quite a width. What, 3 metres each? It's going to be 30 metres wide. Well, it's no problem in a football stadium. There's plenty of space, and certainly that would be the case here in Otepaa. But I think it would change the tactical side of things. Teams would try and get away. You certainly couldn't afford to have too many of the faster sprinters there at the end if you thought you had the fastest team but not the fastest finisher. That's Canada at the back with Len Valius. He didn't look particularly comfortable on that corner. Not sure whether he's having problems with the skis. He's got back onto the end of the group, so no real damage done, but we'll keep an eye out for him. The Canadian's in that predominantly white suit with the yellow knee flashes. Now there's a little burst of speed as they start to prepare for the final descent into the stadium. This is the end of the second lap. Norway 2 leading, Norway 1 in the middle of the pack at the moment. Switzerland have dropped from first back into 8th place, and Canada still in 10th out of 10 with Len Valius, who'll be handing back to Jesse Cockney for the third lap of this 6-lap race. Norway 2, Paul Goldberg comes from Gull. I think they say it, I think it's on the E6, the road that runs up the length of Norway, just down the road from Hemsedal, somewhat 25-30 minutes from Hemsedal, the main alpine skiing resort in Norway. Fantastic area. He's got access to every facility you can believe. So number 13 leading the way, Russia, with Alexei Pechikov back in charge. Well, that second lap was no quicker. So 3:21 first time round, and just over the 3:30 mark for the second lap. Well, I think it's going to be not the next lap, but the one after this, where the likes of Pechikov push out maximum wattage in a bid to break away from well, at least his main rivals. Really needs to shake off the Norwegians. The fastest finishers here, well, I think Federico Pellegrino could fancy his chances if it comes to a sprint finish. He's in 5th position at the moment on that right-hand column, wearing 2. Switzerland are out on their own, 17, that's Roman Schard there. So still no real injection of speed. Now there you see the preparation. Some have got a manual brush, others have a mechanical one. Just to, it's essential to get the dirt off the ski, and with fresh snow and of course a base of artificial snow underneath, you can see the difference in colour where they've been skiing. And there was a lot of clister deposited on the tracks yesterday, and these skating skis will pick up just little fractions of clister which slow the ski down, so the technicians have got to get that off. They probably have to re-wax, just lightly re-wax, then brush it off again. So they only have 3 minutes in which to do that. In fact, they've got less than that, because the athlete certainly wants the skis on the feet a minute or so before they come in for the exchange. Now we should see the next exchange at, what, roughly 10 minutes? Last little section of uphill, and for the first time the World Cup leaders, Norway 1, are moving into a strong position. Anders Gloreson, who won the 15 freestyle in Davos earlier this season, that was a really good race. Thomas Northug, incidentally, not racing. Now that is a definite push coming in from Hattestad and Gloreson. Canada, of course, the team sprint champions from Oslo back in 2011. That was a wonderful performance. Nice to see Harvey on the podium, on the top of the podium there, and nice to see that another nation got a look in, because Norway were totally dominant in the cross-country event. So here we go, 3 laps completed and 10.00, so they're now averaging 3:20. So the first lap 3:20, the second one at around 3:28, 3:29. So that third lap was considerably quicker. We've got just 10 minutes on the clock as they go through the halfway stage. So we're looking for a 20-minute finish time. It might even beat 20 minutes, to be honest. But the total distance, 6 times, 1.5 kilometres. So a total of 9 kilometres in 20 minutes. That is fantastic. Most of us would take an hour to do that. And give them some hard pack conditions, they'd be down at around 16. Norway, both Norwegian teams still up the front, the Canadians still at the back, but still in touch. Finland just starting to drop back. No sign of weakness so far from the Estonian pairing of Rankel and Kummel. It's Peter Kummel on the tracks at the moment. So we go Norway, Russia, and then the Swiss in 5th place. Just tucked in behind them, we've got Poland. And then the Finnish team looking very, very strong at the moment. And Italy must be a little concerned. What's that difference between the Italians in the red suit, 3rd from the back, and the front? It must be 15 metres. And if Norway start to make a move, and it's highly likely to come from Finn Hagenkrok, the leader of the Sprint World Cup standings, 5th yesterday in the classic race. He'd like to just get himself a win. You can see the white base on the ski of Pellegrino. Most of the teams with black bases on the ski. Difficult choices in these sort of conditions, and the technicians playing a major role. They certainly helped Sweden win that women's race. Nilsson looked to have a good pair of skis over the final 500 metres. So Russia and the two Norwegian teams starting to open up just a little bit of a gap. Good skiing so far from Russia 1. Alexei Pechikov teamed up with Sergei Ustigov. Ustigov, who broke a pole yesterday, incidentally. That really put him out of contention in the semi-finals. Thomas Northug, the eventual winner, was behind him when he broke the pole. He was about a foot behind him when Ustigov took the fall, and somehow he danced his way round through the finish line and ended up as the second fastest lucky loser. Now we see another injection of speed. Oh, and it's Krok who's done the damage for Norway. That's some good skiing from him. Now the margin between third and fourth. This is a very similar scenario to the women's race. Coming down towards the finish of lap number 4, 2 to go, and both runners in the last run, they took the first laps very easy. The second lap for the first leg runners was quick, and this could be even quicker. Remember, they went through in 10 minutes. The first lap in 3:21. What do we got? 13:10. So we've got a 3:10 lap. That's very impressive indeed for Norway 1. And they benefited in the fact that they've got a 3.5-4 second gap between themselves and fourth place. Well, these teams, I think, all fighting for the minor placings here today. Team 9, Poland, with Maciej Krzeczmar now on his last lap. He's desperately trying to close that gap, but those leading three might as well keep the pace on. Pechikov looks very confident. Doesn't look as though he's extending himself at the moment. That's Alexei Pechikov, second in the World Cup standings in the sprint events. Finished runner-up in Lillehammer. He got runners-up spot again in Davos. Well, good work. Good work from Poland and Krzeczmar to close the gap on the leaders, but it might mean that he's got a little less in the tank when it comes to the final climb here on the penultimate loop. Switzerland starting to make ground as well. Roman Schad trying to give Gianluca Colonia a decent position. Colonia, of course, who lives in Val Moster, where we had a sprint event in the Tour de Ski. What a fantastic occasion that was. I think it shows you don't need decent snow, you don't need decent tracks, you just need a decent crowd. Plenty of cowbells, plenty of horns, and we've got a good atmosphere here in Otepaa as well. Team 1, Norway 2 with Olav Vigen Hadestad, the Olympic champion, forced down into fourth place at the moment. Is he saving something for the closing stages? And now Pechikov goes. That's a very explosive change, and Hadestad slow to respond. A gap opening up between second and third. No trouble for Norway 1 to spot it, because Anders Glorisson was right on the heels of Pechikov as that injection of speed came in. Now down round the birch trees. This is a key corner. Pechikov takes it really well. The weight on the back of the ski, which wouldn't normally be a good thing in terms of control, but he's got such good balance that he accelerates around the corner, and we have a breakaway of 2. Will Hadestad be able to respond? He's got to be tired. Finished second yesterday, Hadestad, so he's not as fresh as Pechikov, who had the day off, but Pechikov has not shaken Anders Glorisson quite yet. Glorisson is good over distance. He's good on the short, sharp races as well. And it looks as though it's going to be a race between Ustiakov of Russia and Norway's Finn Hagen Krok. Number 13, Ustiakov in the rankings. Of course, Krok is number 1. So on that basis, you'd give the advantage to Norway. But don't forget that Krok raced yesterday. Ustigov also raced, but didn't go quite as far. Missed out on the final, so 1 race less in his legs. Well, what a good burst from Pechikov. Didn't go too early on the climb. And crucially, he was still accelerating when he went over the top of the climb, and look at the damage that he's done. He has taken Norway 1 with him, so it's Russia 1 versus Norway 1 here in Otepaa. The home team are going to be some way off the pace as they go through. Norway 2 back by 8.1 seconds, Italy 12.2. That gives Pellegrino no chance whatsoever unless we have a faller up front. Well, it's not very often that we see a breakaway, such a convincing breakaway on the penultimate loop, but it's made for an interesting race. There's a great race going on for third place. Again, it's between Russia and Norway, but the Swiss are in there as well with Dario Cologna's brother Gianluca, who's there in the black suit, struggling a little, determined to stick to that V2. Ustykov looking strong. Wants to make up for that little mishap yesterday. Don't forget he won the sprint in Novo Mesto in 2014. That was in freestyle, so we know that Ustykov's a class act when it comes to the finish. Krok has done not a lot wrong so far this season. He's the overall World Cup leader in the sprints, and he's only had one victory this year. That came in Davos, but he's not been out of the top 5 in any of the sprints that he's entered this year. That shows brilliant consistency, and he's lying in second place at the moment, which I think is the ideal position. Ustykov starting to look a little tired. Technically, I think Krok of Norway looks a little better, but maybe that the head is starting to roll. Both these men are hurting, and they're hurting badly. Well, they went through the halfway stage in 10:01, and from that, normally you wouldn't get a negative split, but I suspect we are going to see a time well under that 20-minute mark. 18:30 on the clock at the moment, and generally only taking them a minute or so from this point. Round the Birtrees, that's the race for third place, and Italy with Pellegrino have done great work to get themselves back up with that group. Remember, Italy were 12 seconds down, and now they're fighting for a podium finish, and Pellegrino is very sharp over the closing stages. Another burst from Ustykov over the steepest part of the course. Pellegrino goes again, as we saw him do in Val Moster when he took the win in the Tour de Ski, and he's still not going to catch the 2 leaders, but a margin opening up between Russia and Norway. It's 7-8 meters. If Krok can get in the slipstream, he may well close it down. One little rise to go. Russia leading Norway, but Norway starting to close now as they come down into the stadium. 150 meters to go, and it's Russia who lead into the final turn. Great skiing from Ustykov so far, and he's looked strong on the double pole as well. Krok gets in the slipstream. He's going to have to break left or right at some stage if he wants to take the win. He's running out of time. 20 meters to go, and it's going to be a victory for Russia. So Russia first, Norway in second. Great race, Pechikov and Ustykov. It's a frightening pairing, and when they're on that sort of form, very difficult to beat. So Norwegians beaten twice today here in Otepaa, and well done to Italy. Certainly the fastest last lap, or was it 12.2 actually? He started behind Pellegrino. He ends up 12.9 behind. So Russia with Sergei Ustykov, the quickest over the last lap by 0.7 of a second over the Italians. 19:39. Remember, they went through the halfway at 10:01, so that is a very impressive negative split, but the first 2 laps were a warm-up, should we say. It started to build early. Lap 3 was quick, lap 4 was quicker, lap 5 again settled a fraction until Pechikov took off, and then that final 1.5 very, very quick. Oh, great race. Great race. Work to do. It is quite a drawn-out affair. but when you have a final lap like that and you see some a tremendous effort from Pellegrino, that really was fantastic. He took some 6 seconds out of Norway 2, 5 seconds out of Russia 2, and came through to claim third place. So I think Pellegrino might be worth a bet for the World Championship title, but this year, the sprint is in the classic style, and so you know, that reduces Pellegrino's chances. Maybe he'll have to do it in the team event. Just needs to get his partner up to scratch, because Pellegrino is good as anyone out there today. Dietmar Nuckler certainly didn't make too many mistakes, but he just lost that 12 seconds on his final lap. Well, it was all very tight for the first 3 kilometers, the first 2 laps. And it wasn't until Pechikov, who leads this little group, made his break. And the damage, well, you can see it. He's left Switzerland trailing. So only 2 teams going through the final exchange together. And Russia, bold enough to lead, big enough to win. Great race. So Norway's ego taking a little bit of a pummeling today. I know they're on the podium in both races, but they finished second in both races rather than first, which is what they've done so often this season. 1939, the winning team from the Russian team, Pechikov and Ustiagov. Well, the next sprint event on the programme is in Rybinsk. That's not a bad one if you want to get a World Cup win. Head out there, because a lot of the big names often sit that one out. They don't enjoy the travelling at that stage of the season. So we've got Rybinsk, another sprint in Östersund later in the year. That's a classic style. Lahti, of course, in Finland, hosting a freestyle sprint at the beginning of March. And then the last sprint of the season will be in Drammen on the 11th of March, and that is in the classic style. Well, alpine skiing on the cards today. Great to tell you that there is plenty of sunshine in Wengen. They deserve it. It's been a torrid time in terms of the weather, and the men's downhill being switched to today should be a fantastic event. Good pictures without a doubt, and it is one of the most dramatic downhill races of the season, so do stay tuned for that. And of course, plenty of other winter sport action coming up. Biathlon, ski jumping, Nordic combined, you name it, we've got it today. Thanks for your company. Russia, of course, winning the men's team event here. Sweden taking the title in the winners.